Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Nicolas and Refn's Pusher 2, also known as With Blood on My Hands Pusher 2. And this was in 2004, Refn's fourth film, and yes, it's a sequel to his, what was his debut film, Pusher. And this is a trilogy, of course. Here's the DVD, Pusher trilogy, and it comes with all of them on there, 1, 2 and 3. And yes, Pusher 2 is, you could say, the most acclaimed of the three. And I had quite high hopes for this, although I wasn't, massively impressed with Pusher 1. So, I didn't know exactly what to expect really. But I had heard it focused more on Mads Mikkelsen, his Tony character. And yes, I was looking forward to that because I loved him in the first one, of course. And I did have a lot of issues with the first one. But yes, if you've not seen any of my reviews, if you don't know who Nicolas Refn is, he directed Drive, Bronson, and things like the Neon Demon and stuff. So you've probably heard of some of them films, but these are the ones that are more unknown. They're Danish films, Danish crime films, and yes, this one starts with Tony. He's in prison. It's his last day, I believe, and you see him in prison, which is a great opening scene. And of course, as well, you've got the stylized title sequence as well, which is great once again. But yes, the opening scene, you learn that Tony's been in prison, and he comes out, and as well, quite early on, you find out that he's actually, a father with this woman and to this kid. And that plays a massive role throughout this film, and certainly in the second half of the film. But once again, it follows these criminals, and it's kind of, yes, it's got humour in places, but this one is a lot more darker than the first one, less pulpy, you could say, less out there, and just more of a focused human drama, you could say. And yes. To be honest, I was absolutely blown away by this film. I had decent expectations for this. I thought it would pretty much be guaranteed to be better than the first, which I did like. So I thought it'd be a good film at least. But really, it's got 100% Rotten Tomatoes. That is probably because it's got not too many reviews, but still, and it's got 7.4 on IMDb, which isn't that great. But it's got decent. It's got really good reviews. This is, I still think that actually this is underrated after seeing it, and really quite a stunning film. It really blew me away actually. And the issues that I had with Pusher 1, mainly as well with Pusher 1, the fact that it changed protagonists, you could say, or the focus, of the characters in the middle of the film and throughout the rest of the film. For reasons, of course, that aren't to do with his death, Mads Mikkelsen's character Tony went out of it, and he wasn't in the second half of the film in Pusher 1. And I think that was one of the flaws because, he's such an interesting character. And we had to follow this character, Frank, who, played by Kim Bodnia, who was actually a great actor, especially in Bleeder. But really that character, that protagonist, wasn't interesting. And the rest of the film was quite bland after that. After Mads Mikkelsen's exit. This one focuses pretty much always on him, and even better than the first, his character. It's just more of a, he's more of a flawed human in this film, and he's still funny and stuff, but it's much more of a deeper film, and he's more fleshed out even further, as well to do, through different things, situations and stuff that you see him in. Once again, he's an out there character. He's very, very bizarre at times, but certainly as the film progresses, you really connect with him on a very high level. Even more than the first, because you didn't really quite delve into his actual character in the first, but this one really goes. It's a real character study, and everything in this film was just far better than the first for me. Once again as well, I found that the camera work in the first one was very, very flawed. It wasn't focused too much, and I know it was meant to be like documentary-esque inspired. Some directors can pull this off greatly, Scorsese and stuff. But I feel it was just very weak camera work for the most part, and just random sort of moves and stuff. And I didn't quite get, properly invested as I should have done for some of the scenes, because the camera work was a bit sporadic, you could say. The editing was a bit weak, a bit choppy. And yes, at times it did work, but not really too much. In this film, it's much more just static shots at times. Much more sophisticated camera work, lighting. The lighting in this film is stunning. Of course, if you've seen posters, you know that red is one of the primary colours, and Refn uses this quite a lot in his films. Sometimes absolutely perfectly, and really in cases in this film, the way he uses colours is on another level. And I believe he's actually colourblind, so that's really remarkable. The way he uses colours in this film, the way it's shot and everything and lit, is really something else, to portray different moods and at times to relate, completely to characters and stuff. Mikkelsen in particular, and the actual mood of the scene and the act is quite a lot reflected within the colours, which is what one of the great things that filmmakers can do, and Refn really does this better than most films he's ever done it in. I think Drive and Bronson rival it. They're better still with the colour use, but this is up there. And the editing is just far stronger. This is just much more of a confident film in the way it's shot, looks, and just the way it relates to the actual story and the narrative. And the narrative is just completely compelling this time. There is a couple of flaws. Well, really just one or two of the earlier scenes. Once again, was like Bleeder, just a bit flat compared to the rest of the film. Not quite as good as what it could have been, but the rest of the film really quite flawless, to be honest. And that's why I will give this a high score. But there is, a couple of instances, just early on, maybe at the docks, just really that scene and one other one, where it's still good, but it's not quite masterful, not quite great, and it could have been better. And it's not a long film, this. So once again, I have to kind of give it a true score. If that wasn't great, one of them scenes, one or two of them scenes. So I do have to knock a couple of marks off. The rest of the film though was absolutely stunning, and the acting once again. Zlatko Buric, who plays Milo, he returns, and once again he's great. Really good performance, of course, and just the way the characters are written again. And his character, the way he has a lot of comedy. In this film he adds a lot of comedy to it, and as well Leif, Sylvester. The character he plays, great character, and just so much comedy in this film early on, but then it takes a dark turn, but it never becomes depressing, because it's very, very hopeful, and certainly the final act and the ending, wow, the emotions I felt, with that, the final shot is just masterful, the way it culminates and the messages it sends. The way Refn explores his themes is quite masterful, really. And pretty much every scene in this film is just so dynamic, so in tune with what he was trying to say and explore. And just all the characters, all the actors, Maria, who plays Gry, she was great as well. Just all of the characters, and just the scenes as well with Mads Mikkelsen, Tony. It explores more the actual home life and stuff, and the way the scenes with him and his son and stuff was very, very touching indeed, and just wonderfully done and told. Just very, very moving and human for sure. But it's just the confidence that Refn has with all the elements of filmmaking, the way he uses music. Once again, he's on top form here, and. After Bleeder, of course, Fear X came, and I actually hated that film. But once again, this is a great film from Refn, and it's not quite his best, but it's really up there with one of his absolute best. And 2004, probably one of the best films of 2004 as well. And once again, just the way it explores in general criminal life. And of course, another unique film because it's Danish. A Danish crime film, of course. You know, and it just everything that the first one done, this does much better, and even more so. You know, new things that come into play that the first one never even touched on. Just the way that you can constantly relate to all the things that are going on, the characters, the narrative is one of the Refn's strongest. It's just so focused, and so you know, all the filmmaking elements, the subtleties, and of course, you know, the obvious things like the colours. At times, all of them are just there to support this clear narrative. The structure of this film is impeccable. Just the narrative is so compelling and really hits you at the end, because Refn knows exactly what he was trying to say, and just brings it full circle in that final act. One of Refn's best endings for sure, and one of Refn's best films. Yes, so you know, Pusher 2, a 97%. I think it's an absolutely stunning film, on the level of Bleeder, and actually I don't really know, you know, what I prefer at the moment. This is, you know, maybe better. I gave him the same score. This could be a better film, but I'm not sure yet what I prefer. Very, very close, and you know, two great films. Once again, this is stunning. And spoilers, this is the best in the trilogy. I'll be reviewing, of course, Pusher 3, which comes on this as well, at some point soon. But you know, I'm not going to spoil what I think about that. But it's not quite on the level of this one. You know, this is the greatest in the trilogy. You know, the middle act, which usually is a lot of cases where in cinema where you know, the middle act is actually the best film, and this one proves it. You know, by going darker, by going, you know, more human. It turns out in the end it is the best of the three, and you know, just so focused. Aside from a couple of flaws I mentioned, of course, early on, this really hasn't. This is quite a flawless film for the most part, and just, you know, a great film. Not quite a masterpiece. Doesn't quite, you know, go that extra mile and stuff, and doesn't quite have, you know, the first act is not quite as great as masterful as the rest of the film. But really, it's a stunning film, and I highly recommend it. I recommend this trilogy, of course, and of course on DVD, so it's very cheap. But yes, indeed, a stunning descent into hell on earth, as it's quoted on the back. Remarkable film, and thoroughly human. One of Refn's best. So thanks for watching my review of Pusher 2 with Blood on My Hands.